everything changes.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Leading Conversations. I'm Cheryl Esposito. Today, my very special guest is Martin Rutte. And Martin has been with us in the past. Morning, Martin.
Morning, Cheryl.
And Martin is an international speaker and president of Livelihood. And, you know, we call Martin the game changer because he is. And today we're here to talk about the most divine way he has given us to change the world. So good morning, Martin, and welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl. My love, a delight to be with you.
Oh, it's
Really.
always a delight to see you. So, so you've been busy since the last time we chatted about your projects, and you had started a project called Heaven on Earth. And the book came out and it was wildly successful. And you said, it's not enough. I've got to make people go into action, move into action. So what was it that inspired you to take that step next?
Shall we talk maybe a little contextual about who I am, what I've done, and how Heaven on Earth fits into all of that, especially
Sure.
in today's world. So a management consultant, I've worked with such companies as Marion Merrill Dow, Consumer Pharmaceuticals, Sony Pictures, Apple Computer, Southern California Edison, with companies and with individuals looking at their vision. What's next for us as a department or as a corporation? And I've always been interested in the notion of vision. Where are you as an individual, as a company, as a nation, as a world going? And I was going to do a keynote address at a conference, and this thought came to me, well, what's a vision for the world? And I thought, if I had a magic wand, that vision really would be heaven on earth. And my first thought, Cheryl, was, oh my God, you can't say that. Exactly. And then I thought, why can't I say that? I can talk to you about hell on earth. That's permissible conversation, right? Why can't I talk about heaven on earth? So I began this inquiry, talking to people, because I had really no idea about what I meant by heaven on earth. I just was fascinated by the term. And I started this inquiry going around to people saying, what's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth for you? Hundreds and hundreds of people, because what I wanted to do was get a lay of the land of what this territory called heaven on earth really is about. And I distilled it down. Now, we didn't talk about this before the interview, but I'm going to jump this on you. I distilled it down to 3 questions. I want to ask you, and I want your listeners, viewers, to answer as well. You willing?
Willing, absolutely.
Good. Question 1, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on?
There are many. The first thing that comes to mind is being in Bali and experiencing the people and the incredible culture and their reverence for life. Yeah, that was it.
Very sweet. Very sweet. Second question. Imagine you have a magic wand, and with this wand, simply by waving it, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth for you?
That love and peace that I experienced in Bali would be traveling the world.
Or change one word, is traveling the world.
Is traveling the world. We need that, especially today.
Yes, especially today. And then the final question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take to have more of that love and peace travel the world?
Well, I will air this show with you.
Yeah.
And, I think putting this show, actually, this episode, in context of what is actually happening in real time in the world with Ukraine and Russia and the tragedy and the fear. If we, as a collective world community, can breathe peace and love into that entire part of the world, maybe we can affect what's happening.
And I would again change one word, I would change the word if to actually do it. So let's go through the questions again. Question 1, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What you did, Cheryl, was you went right to the answer, which in your case is my time in Bali. What you didn't do is ask me what I meant by heaven on earth. Yeah. And what I find fascinating is every time I ask that question, nobody says, what do you mean by heaven on earth? Nor did I define it in terms of the beginning of this conversation. But yet people know. And the reason you know, is because you have what's inside of you, something I call an already knowing about heaven on earth. And so when the question arises, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. Oh yeah, the time I was in Bali. The time, swimming, giving birth to my child, seeing my first grandchild, whatever it is, but people instantly know. So that's question 1. You already know. You already had an experience of heaven on earth. The second question, here's a magic wand, and with it you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth? The reason for this simple little question with the magic wand is the magic wand takes away the necessity of having to know how you're going to do it. And if you don't have to know how, you went right to the what. That love and peace would spread around the world, but particularly to Ukraine and Russia. And then the third, that what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours? Because what I want to do is make people not just hold it at this level, but actually engage with it and make it real and alive. Not conditional, would or if, but declarative. I'm doing this now. So that you impact the world and the world begins to emerge in the way that heaven on earth is for you.
Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. So, you said that when you first had the thought of heaven on earth, and your second thought was, I can't say that. Was that because heaven tends to be related to religion?
There's a great fear that what this whole project Heaven on Earth is about is a secretive, veiled way of getting you into religion. Which it's interesting because I'm Jewish, and Jews, I don't know if you know that, but don't go around proselytizing. You don't do that. So, but people, kept coming up and up, and I'm going, what are they talking about? I want to talk about heaven and earth. I'm not imposing anything on you. Yes, so the fear is that heaven will be an imposed viewpoint, which is why I don't define what I mean by heaven on earth. So for some people, it's spiritual, love and peace, a value. And for some, it is religious. Fine. Whatever it is for you, obviously assuming no harm to yourself or others, that's what I want to have come out of the closet into the light of the world. And if that concern about religion is there, once the person answers the 3 questions, it's gone, because they realize that it's their answers. I've not defined it. I'm not imposing, I'm evoking. Very different.
Very different. So, Martin, how has your being in this experience of helping people to touch their own heaven on earth, how has this changed you?
I remember when I had the thought, which must be like 30, 35 years ago, oh, you mean heaven on earth? Going, what? Oh, you can't talk about that. But Cheryl, the moment I heard it, I knew that's the next phase of my life.
Mm.
And it's always been a dream of mine to have this world be the world of our ideals. And with all the stuff going on now, with the pandemic, with issues of the environment, with, God forbid, the threat of nuclear war, with when we're recording this the second day of the war, not the war, the invasion
yes.
of the Ukraine by Mr. Putin, as he's
Yes.
been called now. We have to engage those issues, because part of heaven on earth certainly is making more good things in the world, or love and peace, etc. And part of heaven on earth is getting rid of the hells on earth. So it's not la la land only.
Yeah.
And it can be, really nice stuff, but we've also got to, Putin's invasion of a democratic, separate country than his is egregious. It is evil. There is, I don't want to be in any way nice or understand his background. No.
Yes.
I was just looking at my things. I have very dear friends there, and I have a relative there who I'd forgotten about. My father is from the Ukraine. So all of that, plus we've had 70 years of relative peace in the world, and now this nonsense. So good. It's present. I got it. I don't want it. I never would have wanted it. It's present. We've got to handle it as part of co-creating heaven on earth. Right. The other thing that emerges from it is that what the world needs now, that song, What the World Needs, that was,
I thought you were going to break into a tune.
What the world needs now is an effective we. I has gone too far. I has become narcissistic. I has become the selfie, self-absorbed. And the major problems facing the earth today, the world today, humanity today, call for not just a we, but an effective we. A we that stops Russia, and I'm saying gets rid of Putin, brings democracy to Russia, yes, reinstates the democracy that is Ukraine, and so on, and the environment, and the pandemic. We has to come to the fore now. We is part of, and effectively is part of heaven on earth. Yes. Good.
Yes. And so, the concept of we versus me or I, it's that sense of the collective of the humanity that we have lost. It's that sense of connection of each other, that we have lost. And yet, with this situation happening right now today, I believe that people all around the world are beginning to understand that what's happening there is going to affect me, and it's actually going to come down to my day-to-day life at some point. If nothing else, then through the use of fossil fuels. And, so people in their daily life are going to have some effect, whether it's, prices go up because the fuel or gas and oil is less available, or, the banking system, people used to be able to do business with Russian companies, and now they won't be able to do that easily. Things like that are going to begin to help people understand, we are kind of connected in some ways, right? And perhaps people will be able to take that a step or two further to not only are our systems connected, but we as spiritual gathering, spiritual collective are connected. And do you ever run across people who maybe are close to situations like that, and there's more a sense of hopelessness in them that it makes it tough for them to get through this conversation with you?
Yes. I remember once, and I just remember this, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was actually interacting online with a guy in the Ukraine, pre-democracy there.
Mm.
And one of his heaven on earth desires was a free press. And I thought, oh my God, of course. So heaven on earth is also culturally determined and contextually determined in the times you're in. I want to answer your question in another way as well. When people answer the three questions and actually get engaged with whatever simple project that they want, that is their intentional contribution to heaven on earth, what we're actually doing, Cheryl, on a larger scale is we're co-creating the new story of what it means to be a human and what it means to be humanity.
Yeah.
We're in a liminal age right now, that is between one era and the new era. The new era we don't know yet, but if you say, look, I, individual, and we, group, do have agency here, let us now create the kind of world that our hearts and souls deeply long for, which heretofore wasn't available, but now is. The new story of what it means to be a human and what it means to be humanity, I'm saying that is called Project Heaven on Earth, and that we are actually co-creating heaven on earth. If you step out of the mind system, belief system, and said, oh no, we've never had it, it's impossible, and go, okay, I got that, let's just put that aside for a moment, and let me step into this new arena and see what I can do today to help contribute to co-creating heaven on earth. Then we've got a new story. That's what all of this is hungering for. What I do a thing at the end of every year on my blog. You can get my blog on projectheavenonearth.com, sign up for it for free, in which I go to Google at the end of December, the end, 31st, and I put in quotes, heaven on earth. So the phrase heaven on earth in quotes, and then the year. So 2020, and then heaven on earth in quotes, 2021. 2020 was about 4.5 million results for the phrase heaven on earth, not all mine. And then 2020 was 4.5, and 2021 was about 6.3. There was a 64% rise in the number of results between those 2 years. And if you go on today, that number is also increasing. Something is going on under the tumultuous surface of culture, which is saying, I don't want to play this way anymore. So what would it be? Well, let's be bold here. If you gave me a magic wand, and I'm saying I am giving this to you, what would you like? I would like a world with no suffering, with no disease, with no war, with no hunger, where people can thrive, where people have an opportunity for a livelihood, where they can in safety raise their children. All of that, which your heart and soul knows about, now is the time. Now is the time.
Makes my heart open to hear you say that, So, some people may have a little bit more challenge identifying what heaven on earth is for them. I imagine it may be some reasons maybe that they haven't, that their view of the world may be dark. Their experience to this point in their life has not been uplifting, shall we say.
Yeah.
And you have defined actual gateways to help people to get to the real essence of one's own heaven on earth. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. What happened, Cheryl, is after I asked the three questions, the three heaven on earth questions. Over and over, hundreds of times, as I said earlier, I wanted to get the lay of the land. And so what began to emerge were 7 very clear and repeatable, what I call gateways into heaven on earth. So let's just go through them. They're not like 1, 2, 3, 4. They're
Right.
7.
Right.
Sometimes people have only one, sometimes people have more than one. So one of them is for people who say, heaven on earth is within me. The more heaven on earth within, the more it will show up in the world. So I do things which increase the amount of heaven on earth. I go for a swim, I go for a massage, whatever gives me more heaven on earth. Or I clean up the not heaven on earth within me. I go into therapy. I talk to friends to clear out that stuff. So more heaven on earth within me. Those are what I call the inner gateway. Another one is values. You are very clearly in the values. So for you, the values are love and peace. And if I could just speak on your behalf, assuming that peace and love were present everywhere in the world strongly, is that heaven on earth for you?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
So you are in a second gateway, which is values. There are people who say, my personal value, the more it's lived in the world, the more heaven on earth. Then we go to relationship, the gateway of relationship, relationships with yourself, with another or others, and with God, with the divine. So to clean up the relationships that are not heavenly, so that you have more heaven on earth. So you'll notice that we start inner, and so values are still inner. Then we move out to relationships, personal, another, the divine. And then we move into the world external, and outer world. And there are people who say, wait. As long as we have the major sufferings in the world, hunger, war, poverty, disease, we got to clean those up in order to have heaven on earth. And so for those people, it's the gateway of ending a suffering, not making a suffering lessened, which is fine. But heaven on earth for them is the end of war, the end of slavery, the end of poverty. Very clear end of suffering. And there's one suffering which is for them what I call the keystone suffering. If you think of an arch with stones in it, the keystone's the final one that goes in. It holds the tension of everything. Pull that and the whole bridge collapses. So there is usually for outer defined people, for the gateway of heaven and earth, there is one suffering that is key for them. Remove that, everything else collapses, which is what they want.
Yeah. And it doesn't, it doesn't have to be a personal suffering. It's in the world.
It's always in the world suffering, yeah. The personal suffering, to clean that up is an inner issue.
Right.
That's the inner gateway. Yep.
Got it.
Then we move to institutions. There are some people who say, well, wait a minute, what about law, government, healthcare, technology, media, the big systemic institutions of society? What if their job...
They don't need help. Sorry.
But what if their job was to help co-create heaven on earth?
Oh, wow. What a different world we would have.
Yes. Then we move into nations. There are some people who say, I want my nation to be a heaven on earth nation. I mean, obviously Ukraine, right? And so we have people in Croatia, Hungary, I'm trying to think, Sweden, Canada, Mexico, people, the Philippines, my most recent, a guy who declared the Philippines as a heaven on earth nation. He loves it. He's just amazing. And there's even a man from Gabon, Africa, who now lives in Montreal, who said, no, Martin, Africa is a heaven on earth continent.
Ooh.
I know. I went, wow. Charles.
Think big.
And then the final gateway is this here now is heaven on earth. The belief that it's not is what keeps us away from experience it. So the 7 inner values, living a value, relationships, ending a suffering, having an institution of society take its rightful place in co-creating heaven on earth, nation, and here and now. And so one or more of those will always pop, 99% of the time will pop up and they'll go, that's mine. And you can see it. It's not that they're not interested in it, but that's their soul is just not there. This is the one for me.
Right,
I'm in.
Right.
So we should talk. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and it makes it easier for an individual then to know what to put their energy toward, right? I mean, I think that sometimes the world feels so daunting and the number of opportunities so enormous and things that people want to be better so enormous that it feels so daunting to move into the world and try to make a difference. And this process helps people to really kind of focus their vision toward, this is the thing I'm going to put my energy toward. This is the event, or this is the movement, or this is the feeling, or something I can do in my own world, in my daily life, or in the bigger community, or in the bigger world. And so it takes that sense of it being too so daunting away, because people can step into their own level of comfort there.
Let me put it another way. Last night, in every parliament in the world, they passed a secret act which forbids you from being daunted.
Perfect.
You can't be daunted. Or to put it another way, dauntedness or overwhelm, same kind of thing, is an act of arrogance. In this sense, if I want to end hunger in the world, but I don't think I can do anything to make a difference in that, what I'm in is my belief that I can't do anything. Meanwhile, hunger is going on in the world. Right. And so all the parliaments of the world last night said, no, it's illegal. You can't do that anymore. People go, oh, I can't do it. So now what can I do? What will I do?
Okay.
Let me give you some examples about what people are doing. One woman in Mexico City is smiling at 2 people a day. Oh. That's it.
Wow.
Simple. One woman has put her definition of heaven on earth at the end of every email. It's embedded. She said, at the end of her email, imagine you have a magic wand and with you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth for you? For me, and she lists what it is for her. And that we have a police officer who's written a 16-page manual called Heaven on Earth for Law Enforcement. We have a real estate agent who's created a program called A Home for Everyone, where each agent in her office donates, I think it's $25 for every sale of a home or building that goes into a pot. And last year they bought a home for a guy who has kidney disease.
Oh.
There's a woman who was crazed about violence against women. She created this program called Making Change, in which they handed out, her women's group hands out little jars, mason jars, with a picture of a woman's face, half of it beaten up, bruised, half of it bright, alive with the light coming out. And they asked people to make a donation of, get this, a penny a day or more, but a penny a day for a year, Making Change. They handed it out to 2 in their county, and the county next door picked it up as well. They raised $2,500 in a year. This was in Canada. They took it to the group within the federal government called Status of Women, who gave them $100,000 for each of the subsequent 3 years. Oh. From there's nothing I can do, this is just the way it is, to what difference would a penny make, to 100,000. To a woman in Austria who's said Austria is a heaven on earth nation. And she was the first one I went, oh my God, Elizabeth, why are you saying that? And she said, oh, because it's simple. So I don't know what your simple is, but you do. So the guy from Africa, right? Africa's a heaven on earth continent. The first thought is, whoa, but not for him. For him it was like, well, it's obvious.
Right.
A newspaper in Dehradun, India, he called me to do an interview. He read about me. and the publisher editor. And I said, well, what are you going to do about heaven and earth? And he went, what am I going to do? I said, yeah, you. I don't know. So we talk. On the masthead of the newspaper, it's called the Dehradun Street. It's online. In capital letters on every issue, it says Dehradun, a heaven on earth city. So every time people see that paper, it goes in. And here I'm talking to you now from Prince Edward Island, Canada, where about 30 years ago, I was doing a seminar here, and this thought popped in my mind. Prince Edward Island is Canada's first heaven on earth province. I thought, that's a weird thing to say. But I made the declaration. So since then, a cafe has brewed a heaven on earth blend of coffee. A tea merchant has blended a heaven on earth tea blend. A jewelry store owner hands out a card with the 3 questions I asked you with every purchase. Up to about 10,000 people now have gotten that card.
Wow.
There's a drug and alcohol rehab center here, Lennon House, where I did about a little over a year, once a week, on heaven on earth for people who are coming off drugs and alcohol. So 3 years ago, I interviewed each of the 4 political party leaders here and asked them the 3 questions, plus using the same magic wand, what's heaven on earth for Prince Edward Island? And I made that into a video. So the creativity, Cheryl, is stunning to me because I never know what people are going to come up with. Now, the New Deal, which I think you know about this, is March the 7th. Yes.
Very special day on the planet. Very special day on the planet. Happy birthday early.
Thank you. I think you're the first, actually. Well, let's just say you are. Okay. And so my wife said,
I am.
What, you are. My wife said, what do you want? And I went, I don't want 10 jet planes, a 35 Rolls Royce. What I would like, I said, is everybody on that day, on my birthday, March the 7th, to do something that would contribute to forwarding heaven on earth. By your definition, I don't know what it is. I'm asking you to find out. Answer the 3 heaven on earth questions, do something, and then put a hashtag on it, hashtag heaven on earth day. So hashtag heaven on earth day. And I'm going to measure the number of hits on Google at 11:59 p.m. on March 6th and on midnight, March 7th, and see what the jump is. So it's going all over the world now. I mean, I'm amazed at how people are picking this up. So it's the first annual Global Heaven on Earth Day, March the 7th. So put March the 7th in your calendar.
Absolutely.
From now on, do something. It has to be simple. It has to be easy. It has to be concrete. It has to be something you know you're going to succeed at, whatever it is, and put hashtag Heaven on Earth Day. And let's change consciously the story of what it means to be a human and what it means to be heaven. What it means to be heaven.
It means to be heaven because, I'm heaven. So there.
So what we're doing is heavening. Did you know, by the way,
heavening?
Heaven is a noun, and it's also a verb, to heaven. So
I didn't know that.
To heaven, to beatify, to lift up, to make heavenly in character. And I found that in the Oxford English Dictionary. I didn't know it was a verb. Actually, that's good. I've forgotten about that. I've got to make a little note to put that out. So March the 7th.
Heaven is
March
heaven.
the 7th. What?
Heaven is heaven.
But it's heaven here on earth. This is an important, when I started doing this, I started to say to people, heaven on earth. So tell me about heaven. Where's heaven? And what's present for heaven is the place upstairs.
Yeah.
It's the place you go after death. It's the place where God and the angels are. What it isn't is, it's not here, not now. And I want to change that belief system. I want to have it experientially felt by the world that this is heaven on earth, and we're creating more and more of it.
Ooh, so we should not only have fun with this, but on March 7th, we should begin to feel it.
Yep.
Right? Coming from the energy around the planet.
It's exactly right.
What's that going to be like?
I'm just, you know what? I came up with this idea, I don't know, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I kind of tested it with some people. What do you think? What do you think? And everybody was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I thought, well, it's not perfect. I don't have this and I don't have that. And just like, forget it all. And I just started, I just started. And people, the response has been stunning to me. Like it hits something. It really touches something deeply. And when you just said, what's it going to feel like? Because I've always said we need to feel it.
Yeah.
But that's been, theoretical. Now you're saying, no, Martin, what's it going to feel like? It's going to feel like a dream come true. That's what's going to feel like.
Thank you. And that, I'm struck by this whole process is not about getting to the end, right? So it's not about let's use world hunger. It's not about I am responsible for getting to the point where I can count how many people are no longer hungry, right? It's getting that granular, which feels overwhelming to most people. It's about simply taking an action. Well, and not being attached to what the outcome of that action is, right?
It depends on the kind of personality, Cheryl. So for some people, it is granular. You can measure hunger. It's called the infant mortality rate. There's a way to measure hunger. There's a way to measure the number of wars in the world. There's a Swedish institute that studies the number of wars. So if you're that kind of, what would it be, right brain where it has to be granular for you, go and find a measurement that shows. If you're experiential, feeling, kinesthetic, feel what it feels like. Not what would it feel like, but what does it feel like to have more heaven on earth in our world?
So you said that, a lot of people define heaven as that place up there, and it happens after you're dead. You can't access it here on earth, and you're flipping that, right?
Yep.
And you're making that different. So tell us about this recent experience you've had with a group of people who have been committed to heaven being up there all of their lives. Please.
You've done your homework. Here on Prince Edward Island, I have been friends with a Catholic order, and I'm Jewish, a Catholic order called the Sisters of St. Martha. I love them. I've connected with them for years and years. I did a fundraiser for them. And they have I forgot, it's like an Institute of Spirituality. And they approached me, or I approached them, I've forgotten. Anyway, let's do a Heaven on Earth course. I said, okay, fine. And then what if we did it just for the sisters? So we did it just for the sisters. And it was remarkable how they shifted their view of heaven as being not only after death, fine, upstairs, yes, but also here, and that they could be agents to bring that about. They saw their own stuff in the way. And I was so moved by them, because not only are they individuals, but they are a religious community. I've never done a Heaven on Earth. This was over, I think, 8 weeks, once a week for 8 weeks. I'd never done it with a religious community. So to see them come together and to see the respect with which they hold each other. And I always had this thought, all the nuns are the same. No, they're individuals like anybody else. They're I love them. I just love them. And so I did a 2-part video for those nuns who were willing at the end of the course, in which I asked, what did you get out of the course? That was part 1 of the video. And part two of the video is, what are you going to do to help co-create Heaven on Earth? So those videos are on my YouTube channel, Project Heaven on Earth. You can
I
see
love
them. Or
that.
they're on the blog. If you go to projectheavenonearth.com and look at blog, you can see them. They're just, I learned so much.
So you said it was over 8 weeks. What did you do with them during that time? I mean, it seems like the process is pretty simple. So what did you do? What was the content, I guess?
Well, we talked about the need for a new story. I asked them the 3 questions. We did a lot of sharing. This was all on Zoom. So they got to deepen themselves. And then we went through most of the gateways, ending a suffering, each gateway. We spent a week looking, or a session rather, going deep, deep, deep. And then the last one was, okay, you've got it. What are you going to do with this now?
Yeah, yeah. So can you share, were there things that you can share that they have decided to do?
What's interesting that they've decided to do is it's a range. So one sister, I'm old, I'm elderly, they live together, most of them, not all of them. And so I'll go visit a sick person once a week. Now, she was visiting them before, but the difference now is she has the intention that this is my direct contribution to heaven on earth as well. There was one sister who wants to include equal language in religion, that men and women, that the pronouns are equal, not just, heavily masculine. A lot on the environment, very clear on the environment, very committed to the environment. Trying to think what else. Those were the major ones that I can think of at the top of my head.
I just think, well, having grown up going to Catholic school with nuns, I can truly appreciate this whole process and agree with you that, yes, it seems like they may be all the same. They're not. They're very much individuals. They have very much their own struggles. And
they cross the spectrum of, very left-leaning to right-leaning. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's fun for me to hear this, that you've done this with them. And it would be fun to take that further, out into other orders and other nuns, other convents, to see if that whole concept could spread in a way that may actually bring some people back into service in the convent. Because it's very, very tough. Nuns are a rarity these days, and
the youngest is 57.
Yeah.
And
I think that perhaps heaven on earth for them could be being in that service and maybe having a little bit more change in some of the way they live their life. Because I know that's part of the reason why where people aren't interested in doing the work. But, maybe it could change enough so that their level of opportunity for being in service actually expands.
I was impressed by that. They're very clearly devoted to service. There was one sister who really stood up for me. She said, when I was 18, I heard the call and I've never, ever looked back since.
Right.
My concern is that these religious orders, the dismissal of religion from public life, religion for me has to be revitalized in a way that young people do want to come and live a life of service. And the other thing that just struck me as you were speaking, Cheryl, was to revitalize this institution of religion so that it plays its rightful place in co-creating heaven on earth.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the whole concept of religion has been usurped by some of the political powers in the world. And I believe that is part of what has created so much angst. It seemed to me when I was growing up that yes, there were many different religions, and yes, people had different practices and different ways of believing, and yet there, in my life at least, I didn't see that there was a lot of fear of each other or concern about each other, concern in the way of, I should be afraid of you type of thing. And a bit more of the live and let live. It's okay to have religion in your life, and it's okay not to have religion in your life, kind of thing. We've moved so far beyond that. It seems like there are two camps, period. It's you have to have religion and you have to believe a certain way, or you don't want to have religion and you have to believe that in a certain way, and never shall you connect and never shall you, intertwine. And that
it's another example of the polarization that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely true.
I want to make sure that before we go, people know that there is a book.
Yes, there is a book
called
Heaven on Earth.
Project Heaven on Earth, or you can read it another way, Project Heaven on Earth.
Heaven on Earth.
That's on Amazon. Right. And I want to ask people who are listening or watching, I want to ask you to buy 3 copies. Ooh. One for you, one for someone you know, just think of who that person is who could use this book, and one for somebody who's going to come into your life, so that we all become heaven makers, consciously heaven makers. And you can sign up for my free course and my blog on projectheavenonearth.com. Let's create a new story.
I love it. Yeah, writing the new story of humanity, right? We may
creating the new story.
We may as well start with Heaven on Earth.
Yep.
I love it. Martin, thank you so much for being here today. It is a gift for all of us. You are a gift to the world. I love that you're sharing your special birthday with all of us, and challenging us to step up and have some fun and focus a bit on what can we do and how we bring the essence of ourself forward.
March 7th, the first annual Global Heaven on Earth Day.
Only the beginning.
Yes.
Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cheryl, very much.
Remember, everyone, to think big. The world can be a better place because of a conversation that matters. I'm Cheryl Esposito.
Everything changes.